So one of the things that I enjoy most about teaching math or being a math teacher is that I often hear a lot of different perspectives on why are we teaching this math, what is going on with this new math, and how are we approaching everything. And so one of the things that keeps coming back to me is I read an article about a year and a half ago in the Atlantic magazine that was connected to this idea of math and this idea of who should be learning math and how much math should we be learning. And the gist of the article is that there's kind of two sides to this discussion. And one of the sides of the discussion was that we really don't need to be teaching kind of this higher level theoretical math to our high school kids, and that the kids who are really interested in that will pursue that, but not everybody needs that. And then the other side of that conversation is connected to what are the benefits to all students being exposed to kind of this higher level math or this theoretical math. And so this article really struck home for me because I know as a math teacher, often I encounter people even within education circles who will say to me, I don't understand math, I was never good at math, and so they don't really understand what we're doing in the math classroom. And so sometimes what'll happen is people will say, well, you senior math teachers, you're so rigid and you aren't really very good at critical and creative thinking because everything is so logical and sequential. And so this article really struck me as helping to explain what I feel when people say that. And so what I often invite administrators and people like that, leaders who are not math people, I often invite them into my classroom and say, come and spend some time in my calculus classroom. If you really want to see some incredible critical decision making, come and see what happens in a calculus classroom. The other thing that is sometimes a struggle for people is because they don't understand the theory or the practice, the math that we're doing, they think that it probably doesn't have any value in the real world. And so often what happens is I get kids say to me as we're doing something, that's difficult, and they'll say, well, when am I ever going to use this? And every math teacher has experienced that on a number of occasions. And so two stories that I like to share with kids that kind of help them understand that critical thinking piece or where this is going to lead us. The first story that I often use with middle years, so kids that are 13, 14 years old, when they say to me, oh, Mrs. Baldwin, when am I ever going to use this? And I'll say to them, well, imagine this. You're in the mall, and there's this beautiful red Corvette, and you just fall in love with the car. And the great thing is, all you got to do is buy a ticket, and you can win this beautiful car. And so you go ahead and you buy the ticket, and sure enough, you get the phone call. You've won the car. What do you do? And they're like, well, what do you mean, Mrs. Baldwin? And I say, well, do you take the car? Like, you won it, but do you want it? And they're like, of course. Why would we not take it? And I say to them, well, because you're only 13. You don't have a driver's license. You can't use the car. This car is useless to you right now. And at this point, lots of the kids start to understand what I'm suggesting to them. And they start to understand that, wait a minute, just because I can't see the obvious reason for this at this moment in time doesn't mean that there isn't a point at some point when I'm going to need this. And I will want this, and I will be able to use this. And the second story that I often use with kids is connected to going to the gym. And so with senior kids, and they're struggling and they're like, well, when am I going to use this? And I say to them, okay, well, think about it this way. Have you ever gone to the gym? And yeah, I've gone to the gym. Well, why do you go to the gym? Well, it makes us stronger. Well, what do you do at the gym? Well, I lift weights. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you go to the gym and lift weights to get stronger? When in your real life have you ever been walking down a street and there's a set of barbells sitting there in the middle of the street that you have to move out of the way? That doesn't make any sense. oh, Mrs. Baldwin, you don't understand. It's making us stronger by lifting the barbells so we can do other things. And at that point, again, kids start to understand what we're saying. And so sometimes when we're learning in math and when we're trying to sort through things that are really difficult, the arithmetic piece itself may not be the most important piece of that learning. And often the important pieces of that learning are those hidden pieces. And that's the critical understanding piece that sometimes leaders that don't necessarily understand the math understand, and sometimes that's the pieces that get missed. And so when politicians are trying to make decisions about what direction our math learning is going to go, they need to remember that it's more than just the arithmetic. It's more than just the computation. And so if we only focus on those pieces, then we forget about all those other important pieces that are going to come along. And the last thing we want is we do not want a bunch of students that can do arithmetic but aren't strong in other ways. And so we want to challenge those students, and we want to challenge the way that we are approaching our mathematics. We want to challenge all those things so that the kids, when they are in situations where they have to use their critical thinking skills or they have to apply things in different ways, that they feel strong enough to do that. I had an interesting conversation with some of my administrator folks because our division has really been enthusiastic about our distance learning programs, and there's a push to move some of these classes into distance learning classes if the enrollment numbers are a little bit low. And so my administrator approached me and said, we're thinking about moving calculus to distance learning because, our numbers are 8, 9, 10 kids. And I said, well, you know what? Here's the deal. Right now in our school, we have, on average, somewhere between 50 and 60% of our grade 12 students are taking Calculus 30. If we change that and we move that to distance learning classes, I guarantee we're not going to have those numbers. And in fact, when you're getting pressure to move those classes, let's ask for that data. Let's say, what percentage of students in other schools are taking calculus? And the reason why those students are or aren't taking calculus. And what I always say in our school, the reason why we're so successful with our calculus is because the kids know that there's a teacher that believes that they can do the work. And they know that I know that they can achieve well beyond what they think they might be able to do. And that's the beauty, again, of having a strong math program, having kids that are willing to work hard, even though sometimes it's not completely obvious how this is going to apply in other contexts. I know our career work person said, the thing you got to remember is calculus is not a prerequisite for lots of things. And what I often argue or counter with is it's not about a prerequisite in terms of a tick on a box. What we're really teaching here is we're teaching kids how to be strong, how to be resilient, and how to deal with something that's difficult in a way that is manageable. And kids, when they finish Calculus 30, when kids who have described themselves in grade 8 and 9 as, well, I'm not very strong in math, and they come through and they end up with a Calculus 30 credit, they feel pretty darn strong. And when they head off to post-secondary, and they know that they can accomplish something that is difficult for them in a context that is difficult for them, it gives them power. And so when we are talking about why we're teaching math and who we're teaching math for and what is the purpose of it, we've got to remember we're doing it for more than just the arithmetic. We're doing it so we can have strong learners who can use their skills in different ways and who can feel motivated to do good work even when that work is hard. Thank you.